The future of DC Studio hinges on the success of Superman and the film breaking even, as a brand new article has went up from The Wrap, detailing its production budget, marketing, and of course the break-even point that once they hit that box office, they will officially start to make money. And well, there's already high tensions at DC Studios, and Superman is at the forefront of everything. So in this video, we're going to cover everything beat by beat so you guys are exactly caught up to everything, how Superman has to be a hit or it's over before it even starts. So getting right into it, this was an article posted on The Wrap on June 2nd of 2025. And the headline says, and I quote, "Can Warner's DC Studios rise from the ashes with Superman?" And right at the start, this is what it says, and I quote, "When Superman hits theaters on July 11th, more than just the future of DC superheroes wing hangs in the balance. The opening salvo in a rebooted approach to an interconnected DC Comics universe, Superman represents a make or break moment for Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav's strategy to leverage DC's intellectual properties after previous Warner regimes struggled for years to build a cohesive cinematic universe that connects with its global audience. The litmus test will be whether director and DC Studios CEO James Gunn's film will generate enough box office to keep his and CEO's Peter Safran's ambitious 10-year plan for DC Studios on track. With a $225 million budget, and then they do add a little bit more, but we're going to have to cover that beat by beat because right now, right here, we got to talk about the budget of the film. And the budget is high. Okay, so with a budget of $225 million, this is the exact same budget that was allocated to Man of Steel in 2013. Now, ultimately, that film's actual budget ballooned to about $258 million with some necessary reshoots that happened. Its box office outcome was $670.1 million. And if you guys look at the facts, like the marketing budget, Man of Steel was an actual failure. It never turned a profit during its theatrical run. Now, why this is important is because they're giving the film the same budget. So the same principle applies to this film breaking even. And that's when, in the article, they drop more info on this. But with a budget of $225 million, you understand that this is a big budget film. This is a big deal. This is a blockbuster any way you look at it. And this is up there, this year specifically, as the highest comic book film budget to date. Fantastic Four First Steps is not at the same budget. Thunderbolts and Captain America were each 180, so this is significantly higher. Again, upwards of 50 million higher. And they are primed for a July release date, which puts them a week after Jurassic World Rebirth and 2 weeks before Fantastic Four. It is one of the most stacked Julys we've ever seen. But to make matters worse, June is also stacked weekend after weekend after weekend, and we've seen the cause and effect of so many blockbusters back to back that something's got to give. So this year is really warfare, and it's the first time since like 2015 to 2019 that we've been at this same amount of output. So a lot is riding on Superman, which brings us to its break-even point of $700 million. So with $700 million to break even, what you need to understand is everything they make before that is to pay off the development of the film, the production, and the marketing. Now, again, people tend to do quick math. So $225 million to produce the film, And then you typically take that, and the budget is 1 to 2.5 times more. For superhero films, it's typically around 2 to 2.5 times more. And with a lot of marketing and merchandise out there, we know that $700 million is exactly where $225 to $250 million budget comic book films land, which means that this film, again, needs to make $700 million. Because remember, for every $100 million they make, the theaters take anywhere between a 40 and a 60% cut due to specific locations, countries, and whatever else. Which brings me to talk about the fact that people just cannot admit that Superman is not a big box office hit or a guarantee. And I'm talking about the character in general. Like, the character's history on film has not really done as big as people think. Now, again, there's always people that rush to the comments, adjust for inflation, adjust for inflation. But if you're going to argue that from a movie from the 1970s, then we got to argue that for every film ever, and people pick and choose. The fact of the matter is, yes, adjust for inflation, sure, but you can't apply that constantly because there's different parameters. So when we look at the history of Superman, he struggles on film. This is a known fact if you just look at the box office numbers. So what we're seeing now is that Superman is in a very interesting position with needs from WB for this to be a hit. It needs to be a hit. So, for example, when it comes to Superman, The Quest for Peace, Superman 4, worldwide did 36 million. Superman 3 did 80. Superman 2 did 190. Superman did 300. Superman Returns did 391. And an interesting piece of detail in regards to that is that the film was more profitable and made more than Batman Begins, but didn't get a sequel because they got cold feet on Superman. Man of Steel made 667, and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, as Superman is in the title, hit 872, pitting the two most popular characters together, and they couldn't even crack $1 billion with a $2 billion expectation. Which brings us to what hinges on Superman, and that's all of DC Studios. So since the entire future of DC Studios depends on Superman, they reveal that this is exactly why Supergirl is the second film in the franchise. Because the association with Superman, and that film even getting $500 million, aka Supergirl, would be good enough, as it's going to have a cheaper budget. But at the same time, everything rides on Superman because, once again, it's doing the same thing they did with the DCEU and Man of Steel. It's starting at the beginning of the franchise, and it lays a foundation of expectations. The expectations being from WB, it has to do way better than the film from the guy that we kicked his franchise to the curb because of everybody saying we don't want more of this. And as they mentioned, think of the optics on abandoning the previous guy, getting rid of that Superman actor, and then your new film doesn't do as good. I mean, it's going to look terrible for you, and you're going to get dragged through the mud by the core of online opinion. Let's be real. And they also get into talking about David Zaslav's recent comments during earnings calls, where he said that their big thrust going forward is DC Studios, DC Comics IP, and two other ones. Among these being, of course, Harry Potter, which is a big deal, and Lord of the Rings. They got the three pillars that they want to build up on, and the other two are already kicking off with a new TV series that's spending $1 billion on building just sets for the next decade, aka Harry Potter, and the other one, Lord of the Rings, they're announcing new films, with the first one 2 years out. So as they get into it and talk about Zaslav's comments, DC Studios has to be a pillar that holds things up. And when we look at what's going on with the perception of DC Studios, with everything they have going, with everything at hand, all of DC Studios depends on Superman, because imagine this. If Superman is your temple, it's the thing that kicks off your universe, again, just like Man of Steel. This time, they don't have something like Batman v Superman and things, cooking. When Batman v Superman came out, they were so dead set serious that it was going to be a hit that they were already producing Wonder Woman, Justice League, and the Suicide Squad, the first one, that there was no turning back. This time, they're holding back. We're seeing that films are delayed and TV series have been pulled back because they don't know. So they're right now in a position where if this film is not a big hit, you don't have a future. And now to quote Terminator, but alter it severely. There's no fate but what they make for themselves. So here it's going to be the final piece of this video where I break things down. So let's say that this film gets stellar reviews. Like we're talking about in the mid 80s to anything above, I would say like 83, 84, right? It gets a certified fresh. That's what it needs. Let's say it gets that. Even if the box office ends up at, let's say 600 million, I would say maybe 550 tops. A future is guaranteed because in this instance, the film is received way better and more positively than Man of Steel. Sure, Man of Steel made more money, but it has a 57 on Rotten Tomatoes, a 75 from audiences, and well, the optics on it are that it didn't do what a lot of fans wanted. If this film delivers the audience, you look at it the same way you look at Thunderbolts and Captain America Brave New World, or Shang-Chi and the Eternals. Shang-Chi made less than Eternals, but audiences and critics loved it more. When you look at Thunderbolts and Captain America 4, Thunderbolts is going to end up making less, but the audiences and critics love it more. Therefore, it has a more positive association with it, and they know that the positivity of one will deliver better merchandise sales than a negative one. And as somebody who's privy to seeing action figure stats and has since this channel started and the old podcast, I can tell you that Man of Steel damaged Superman's reputation and sales as bad as The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did for Spider-Man. There was no going back. The character was permanently damaged. So at the end of the day, this film, if it underperforms and does close to 550, 600 million, if the reviews are great, they're going to stick with it, but budgets will be brought down and the universe will be downsized. If it does over 700 million, close to $1 billion, as most analysts think it's going to do, this thing is off to the races and on fire, and there's no holding them back. They're going to greenlight a whole slew of projects that they believe they can make bank of. But at the same time, you got to look at the bigger picture. And that's that WB and DC are right there on the line, and especially WB. We know they're consolidating. We know they want to sell. And we know that they're looking at what could be sold to where. And make no mistake about it, we've heard about this before. DC is a brand that could be sold off to make money as it's valuable. So if they need to get rid of that multi-tens of millions of dollars deficit that they still have, the choice might be obvious. And that's to sell and move on. So it all actually does hinge on Superman, whether you like that as the truth or not. Thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will, and if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.